So I picked up an indie game the other day called Enter the Gungeon. The best way to describe it would be a roguelike twin-stick shooter, very similar in certain ways to The Binding of Isaac. The first thing to mention is the graphical style. I really like it. It gives you an immediate idea of the tone of the game. It's fairly light and animated, and for some reason reminds me a little bit of the Metal Slug games. There is a lot of detail that went into the environment, especially with the interactability with background objects. Almost everything can be shot up, ran through, or destroyed. Even the tables can be flipped over and used as cover, though I find myself not needing to do that. But the bullet holes in the side of the table as you shoot them is a nice touch. I know it's kind of weird, but it's those little things that make me really like a game sometimes. The controls are smooth. The game supports gamepad and mouse and keyboard, but I prefer mouse and keyboard for more accurate shots. You also use the Q, E, R, and space keys. Altogether, it feels like a good balance between simplicity with the controls and depth in what you can do with them. Enter the Gungeon is a roguelike game. You choose a character and make your way through a multi-floor dungeon, picking up items along the way. The game is a bit different from typical roguelikes in that items usually don't feel like an upgrade exactly. Typically, they come in the form of new guns, which for the most part seem fairly balanced. Some might be more powerful but have less ammunition, or fire quickly but take longer to reload. I don't really find myself relying on certain power-ups. This is definitely a game where I feel player skill matters much more than how lucky you get with random items. As with most roguelikes, this game has permadeath. Once you die, it's game over, at least for that playthrough. You lose all your items and you'll have to start from the beginning of the Gungeon. And in true roguelike fashion, the Gungeon re-randomizes every time you enter it. But there is still some sense of progression. Defeating bosses results in the acquisition of credits that can be used to buy different items that will appear in the Gungeon randomly on subsequent playthroughs. You also find NPC characters throughout the Gungeon who will help you in various ways, and they'll stick around even after you die. And though I haven't found any yet, I suspect there are some extra characters to find as well. I find the game to be extremely difficult. I can usually make it through the first floor no problem, but there is a significant increase in difficulty once you get to the second floor. Not only does the game start throwing tougher enemies at you, but they add traps and hazards into the mix as well. Speaking of enemies, the AI is fairly good for a game like this. You'll see them using cover and even creating their own by flipping over tables. There are various secrets, hidden areas, and cryptic rooms that I have yet to discover the purpose of, all of which adds a certain feeling of discovery and adventure. If I had one complaint about the game, it would be that new items don't really tell you what they do. You have to look through the in-game encyclopedia to see a good description. If the information is readily available, I wish they would just tell you what it did when you picked it up instead of you needing to hunt it down. So altogether the game is very good, and I can see myself playing it for a long time or just here and there when the mood hits. Now I want to give out a few tips for people who are just starting out. I find the easiest character to play is the Hunter. Her revolver seems to be fairly strong and her crossbow does immense damage. I recommend saving it for bosses. Her dog will also randomly find items, including health, which can definitely be a lifesaver as health seems to be fairly rare. I find the best strategy is always stay moving and making liberal use of the dodge roll. For the first part of the roll, you're immune to damage, but be careful of directly rolling into more shots. I find myself never needing to flip tables over and just using walls as cover or dodge rolling instead. Also keep in mind the traps and pits once you hit the second floor. Many times I have died from falling into a pit or floor hazard just because I didn't realize I should be paying attention to the floor. I find it best to save money for health and armor at shops because new guns usually don't seem to be worth buying. It's better just to stay alive. And speaking of new guns, you might be tempted to save your ammunition on special guns for certain situations, but I find that new guns and ammo, although rare, are still found often enough to not really worry about it. Plus, it's just fun to use new weapons when you get them. If you decide to pick this game up, tell me in the comments what you think of it. Anyway, I'm Cothrix, and you have a wonderful day.